We are ready for discussion and reports. The first item is the State Board of Education staff updates, and I believe you received a year-long calendar. Ann? I will add this calendar has taken quite a bit of work.
It has. It's a lot of collaboration, so it's been wonderful. So back in July, the board members had asked for a calendar that captured annual activities required through statutory obligations for the board. So that is what that draft calendar is. It has all of the statutory and rule-related requirements for the board. We've also added the strategic planning update because of that initiative, and then also the work related to Glenwood currently. My plan would be to bring that book forward every month to touch base with you, to say that those were the areas where they were identified, which month they would take place, and just get your affirmation that that's how the board wishes to proceed still. So that being said, I've had looking to the board for affirmation that the items that are listed for January you want to continue. And I'd also like to share that I had a great opportunity to talk with Lauren Naughton this week, and I was there a moment ago, and talk with Lauren about those items from this calendar. We both think this will really help to streamline the process so the board makes sure that they capture all of their statutory obligations as well. Regarding Glenwood Leadership Academy, the hearing was on December 10th. It was a great opportunity to collaborate with the board, work with Teresa Brown on that. Her team, I think, did a great job in organizing everything and taking care of everything. We just received the transcripts within the last day, so we will forward those to board members from the proceedings. And then that is also scheduled to come before the board in January as an action item. Regarding strategic planning, I know that Dan will be giving an update shortly on that in terms of the details, but just want to let you know the next meeting being January 15th for strategic planning. That is the full board activity, and since there are some members who are not on the committee, SELF will be providing some materials for those people who were not at the previous meeting so that you have an awareness of what that is when you walk into that. So you've got a little bit of background information on what strategic planning is, what the purpose is for strategic planning, and a balanced scorecard. And then also, let's see, we have the REPA 2 hearings that are coming up in January for the board, January 13th for Northern Indiana, January 14th for Central Indiana, and January 16th scheduled for Evansville in Southern Indiana. And so those are information that's been provided in weekly updates, but also just wanted to remind you those are coming up, and that counsel for the board will be taking care of those details, and I will also be attending.
Thank you very much.
January 13th for Northern Indiana, 14th for Central Indiana, and then January 16th for Southern Indiana, yes.
Update on career and works councils. Thank you, Ms. Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. If I may, I'd like to share handouts that have my PowerPoint with the board and with key staff here.
You may.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will provide an update to you on the Career Council and the Works Councils as alluded to in your agenda. And if the chair sees to it and you have questions, then I'd be happy to take those at the end as well. So I work for the governor. I'm a special assistant to the governor for career innovation. And as part of my responsibilities in advising the governor on workforce matters, I'm also responsible for oversight of the Career Council and the Works Councils. Those two pieces of legislation were passed unanimously by the General Assembly this past session, and those are the two items that we'll discuss. Public Law 60-2013 is the Career Council statute, and the Career Council statute has within it embedded some statutory requirements to, number one, namely, align and coordinate education and training activities here in the state of Indiana, to come about a plan which will basically determine how that might happen better, and to present that plan to the General Assembly by July 1. As part of the efforts of the Career Council, we had an interim report that was due by December the 1st, which we have turned in, and I'll make sure that you know how to access that progress report, and also to give you some insights into what that includes. The other elements that are responsibility of the Career Council are to make sure that there is a development of a comprehensive strategic plan already alluded to, as well as oversight of IWIS, which is the Indiana Workforce Intelligence System, and to carry out the production of a training and education report that we have due to the General Assembly each August 1st.
May I ask where your strategic plan is in development?
Certainly. So the strategic plan itself is due July 1st, but the interim report that we delivered to the General Assembly, which was due by December the 1st, is our progress report. And what that includes is all of the work done to this point by the Career Council. That includes a couple of task forces that were established in September, including on IWIS and on community colleges best practices. And then we have put together a strategic plan development timeline, as well as 2 task forces on strategic plan development. And we just, this past Monday, approved a consultant that would also assist with the strategic planning to come in the months ahead.
To anything you can share with us as we go through our strategic planning, one of the whole ideas
Yeah.
behind this is there's a flow and coordination. What we're doing relates. So if
Right.
there's anytime we can communicate and coordinate, I think it would be wise. They'd like to know what your consultants are saying or any information sharing, and we'll do the same.
Thank you. I appreciate the offer, and that was actually part of the intent in both myself and Claire Fitty and Green working together under the Center for Education and Career Innovation umbrella, was to be able to take on the strategic planning processes that were required by statute among these various boards and councils and to help coordinate those efforts. So we'll be delighted to do just that. Yes, please.
I may be beating a dead horse here, but I'm worried that the focus on college and career readiness has almost gone too far. So my concern is anything being done to make sure that as schools develop more and more technical and career education programs, that students who shouldn't be in those, who should be enjoying a broad-ranging liberal arts education, are kept in the liberal arts and not taking the other courses because maybe they look more fun or more practical or something like that. Because, you know, you give a kid a chance to work on a computer, he's probably going to say, you know, goodbye British literature course. So how do you keep that fine balance, particularly with the focus that's been placed on this job training?
Of course. So it isn't at the job preparation or the career preparation isn't at the exclusion of those other things. As the governor talks about it, it's about having 2 Plan A's. For students that wish to study in high school and go directly into career, that is just as honorable and attainable as it is to go on into post-secondary and then on to career. Career is going to happen at some point, right? It's just a matter of what is the pathway that's most appropriate for that student and how do we help guide them toward that. And of course, what we're looking at with the Career Council is the entire pipeline. I know your focus, and rightly so, is more what's happening in pre-kindergarten, in some cases all the way up to grade school, through high school, but we're looking at the entirety of the pipeline, including those returning adults who might be unemployed or underemployed, who need skill sets and who need to be retrained in order to be employable. So appreciate the concern. It's not at the exclusion of the liberal arts or the 4-year programs that students might want to study otherwise.
And do we have data that would show how high school curricula is shifting, particularly as a result of some of the career-ready incentives that have been built into our formulas? Do we know if high schools have, say, given up certain courses in exchange for supplementing their curricula with some of these technical education?
Are you talking about AP courses and dual credit and the like? Is that?
I'm talking about all courses, whether elective or AP or dual credit.
I can actually, Andrea, we just sent out information regarding that to you. There's actually been an increase in the number of courses that are offered to kids in electives since the onset of the AP and the dual credit and those types of things. So we just sent that information to you yesterday, the day before, because we
Probably lost in all my emails.
Oh, I know you haven't. I'm just letting you know that we just sent that to you because you requested that of the board.
Right, okay, so
of
I've
the
got that. I'll look for that.
department. You're welcome.
And I've, just while we're on this topic, one more comment, if I may. I really appreciate Andrew's concern for this. We hear a lot from our faculty, let's study business. I think they not only can live together, they enhance one another. And it's of great importance, and I don't think we have to lose it, but I think there has to be a voice that keeps us on it, and maybe that's one reason you're here, but we can figure this out. It's more, as much as we need to know basic skills or master education is so much larger than that. And I think we can do both and the number of courses indicate people are working at it, and we want strong drama programs, and the artist and Plato, show me the artist will run the show in the end of the day, so the culture. So I think we can marry those, and we need to keep working on it.
And I might add, at some point, we may even want to have a dialogue about even flexibility with the actual 40 credits that kids earn, giving them more wider berth to actually enter into opportunities and coursework that really excite them and engage them and have relevance to what they're doing.
And learn the basics at the same time, actually. It's amazing. Great teachers are doing it.
Thank you. You want it? You're not finished, are you?
I am not.
I
if
didn't
may.
think you were.
If I may
Go
beg a
ahead-
little more
go
of your
ahead,
time.
Jackie.
Thank you. So just to give you a national perspective on some of this work, I think you might be interested to know the National Governors Association has taken a special interest in the alignment of education and training across the states, and to do that in such a way that clients are able to make better informed decisions, as well as to help lend themselves to areas of study and into career where they can be in self-sustaining employment. And in particular, the governor out of Oklahoma, Governor Fallon, is the chair of the National Governors Association, and her issue area, which is common year over year for the chair, is America Works, and it is about just this. Myself and Claire Green have attended meetings of, there have been more than 30 states thus far that have participated, that are looking at how our governors and other leadership within a state looking at the challenges and opportunities in this space. And so I think we're in a unique position here in the state of Indiana to take some of what we have done to this point, what we're known for in terms of reform and innovation and engagement across these various agencies and initiatives, and thinking again about the entire pipeline, and to take that to a whole nother level in terms of consideration around strategic and planning and development and further implementation along those lines. With that in mind, I wanted to make sure that you had an understanding of the composition of the Career Council. The Career Council itself is chaired by the governor and the lieutenant governor's vice chair. Of course, the superintendent by statute sits on the council itself, as well as some other commissioners and secretaries of key agencies. And then we have a couple members of both the House and the Senate who sit on as non-voting members. And the governor has 3 special advisors as well. The council meets monthly per the statute. And again, we have fairly heavy agendas. We also do a good deal of work now in 4 task forces that meet outside of the monthly meetings, sometimes as frequently as every couple of weeks, to work on special issues. I've already referenced the progress report. The progress report, to President Eltzner's question, is kind of where we are in the strategic planning process. If you'd like to see the progress report, at the very last slide, you'll see the website for the Center for Education and Career Innovation. You can go to the Career Council link, and you will see not only meeting minutes and presentations from all of the meetings, but you'll see the progress report there. It is in all the work that has been done cumulatively, which includes, and you may be interested in some of this work, the training inventory that we've submitted initially for the council, the asset mapping project that has been underway, as well as the skills gap analysis. Some of that will start to address some of the other questions that you're asking about what is it that we're currently doing, how is that potentially still leaving a gap among employers, and what does that gap look like? We need to do more work on that, but it gets at, what is it in Indiana that we have as a way of an opportunity, how we kind of connect those dots. The asset mapping in particular is those agencies that sit at the table coming with the federal and the state funding streams that support various areas of education and training, the amounts at which the education training programs are supported, and we're getting now to how do we understand the outcomes of those initiatives. And that's literally hundreds of millions of dollars in state and federal funds, and that is not considering K through 12 funding in and of itself. It's all other. So that's a little bit of the work that we've been engaged in this point. I would say to you, if you were to have one takeaway about how are we framing this work, it is around career pathways for all. They're aligned to industry or sector areas in Indiana's economy, and also at a regional level, where we really see demand for specific skill sets and or credentials at the very lowest level, all the way up through to baccalaureate and beyond, and how that kind of stems across those various areas. And when I say career pathways for all, I really do mean multiple entry and exit points for individuals of all ages to continue their education and training, and again, be able to be successful in the workforce. So with that in mind, we have, again, the strategic planning consultant who we're now in contract negotiations with, and we meet again on January the 22nd. You are all welcome to attend. Those are public meetings, and or you can follow us after the fact as well. May I take any other questions about the Career Council itself before I move on to talking about the Works Councils? Okay. Regional Works Councils, again, were passed unanimously by the General Assembly this past session. They were to ask essentially the governor to establish a map by which he would have regions represented in the state of Indiana, and to have composition of councils that would address local needs of meeting understanding employer needs and meeting those by what high school curriculum would help prepare individuals best, either to enter into career or to be successful making that transition to post-secondary and then to career. So specifically, the statute says that there would be an evaluation of career and technical education at the secondary level, looking at the connectivity to career. Specifically, they may offer proposals for alternative career and technical education curriculum after December the 31st. That's a cue to you. That would have to go through the State Board of Education, of course, if there were to be alternatives. Though I think some of the action you've taken just today actually helps address the potential development that would emerge from the Works Councils that would fit in the platform already available within the course structure. The councils themselves are, you'll see a map here, there are 11 in all. They are aligned to the economic growth regions in the state of Indiana, so this fits actually a couple of other maps that already exist in Indiana. And they are comprised of about 15 members, depending. We have a few of them that are a little bit larger. They have on them outreach coordinators that the superintendent requested could sit on those councils, as well as CTE directors, principals, superintendents, post-secondary partners, and then of course business and industry partners. We also have some workforce development partners and economic development partners as well that sit on those works councils. Their work to this point has been pretty intensive. They began meeting in the month of October. They had, due to the Education Roundtable and to the governor, their initial evaluation reports, which they turned in. Again, if you'd like to see those are on our website in full. You would also see an executive summary, literally a one-page executive summary, and then there's another executive summary which gives each regional report in about a page or a page and a half. What I wanted you to know is we heard some common themes among those evaluations, and the first 5 of those are listed here as kind of the main themes around the need to make sure we're reaching out to employers to better understand exactly what skill sets they need and how those are tangible. Is it in a credential, and if a credential, what kind of a credential, making sure that we can, again, fulfill that need potentially in the high school space. So understanding employers' needs was certainly something that we saw. Looking at more awareness for CT opportunities, and that's kind of across the board, meaning that we need to help students understand the opportunities as well as teachers, being able to share those, counselors being able to share those, parents understanding the availability as well. So there's a need to make sure that we're making a bigger push to help understanding across the stakeholders. And then there were some other aspects of making sure the employability skills are accounted for, making sure that to the superintendent's point, that there's some flexibility in the curriculum so that we're making sure that students have the option to study areas that have more value to their preparation for career or for college, and then looking at innovative curriculum that may already be in place or is being considered that just kind of needs a boost. There are meetings upcoming across the regions that are looking at getting more industry or employer feedback. There are also site visits to career and technical education centers to see what it is that they do and how they do that. And then looking at some questions that will be posed by the Career Council for the Works Councils to address in the very near future. So with all of that in mind, you may be wondering what would be the role of the State Board of Education. So I wanted to illustrate a couple of elements of that. One has already come up based on the President's question around the strategic planning. Yes, we want to work together as the Career Council puts together its strategic plan to make sure that we're aligning and working with the State Board of Education strategic plan. Ours is due July 1, so we have a lot of work to do here in just the next few months. But the other aspect is engagement in the Works Councils. Now, the Department of Education is represented there, and we have teachers and superintendents and the like represented, but you are also welcome to engage in the local Works Councils. Those are public meetings, and you'd be invited to participate in that. Even if not that, there's the potential for alternative curriculum to be considered, so we would obviously bring that back to you for formal consideration if needed. But at any time that you'd like an update around that, then we would certainly want to accommodate your request to understand what we're seeing, what we're learning. Moreover, the governor has said that he'd like to see a career and technical education return on investment study done in the next number of months, such that we would go into the budget cycle with more information about career and technical education opportunities. What you may know is that secondary career and technical education funding through state and federal funds receives about $115 million year over year. About $100 million of that is given by the General Assembly. So it's a much larger proportion of state funds that support career and technical education, and then some federal funds, usually around 14 million right now, that support CTE. So that's a little bit about what's happening with the Works Councils and what we anticipate in career and technical education going forward in terms of looking deeper and making sure that we're aligning to pathways as closely as possible and looking at funding outcomes, not just inputs in the future.
Thank you, Jackie, and I might add that I enjoy my role on the Indiana Council, Career Council, and look forward to some more robust conversation. Thank you very
and
much.
Thank you for serving on a task force. Superintendent will be engaged in that soon.
Thank you. You're welcome. Reading rule discussion. I know you received some additional information that was requested at the last board meeting regarding different pieces of language and suggested changes for the rule. I think really the question before us is today, maybe do we want to proceed with reading rule discussion, actually going forward with a reading rule, or do we want to address that later, as I know we're going to be addressing, as I stated in August, the bigger picture of reading and gathering some information about reading. So I guess it's here on the discussion item. We left it here. If anybody wants to add any comments at this time, Andrea?
Well, I do have a question. Since the NAEP scores were released, I have heard from quite a few third grade teachers who are attributing the increase in the fourth grade reading NAEPs to the iRead. And so is it a fait accompli that we're going to incorporate the new reading assessment in whatever new assessment we come up with, or is preservation of iRead as a separate entity still a viable alternative?
It's a separate entity, but the dialogue may change depending upon what we decide to do with assessment. So, because it may actually give us the same information, and you wouldn't have to have two tests. Right now, we don't have our state assessment give us any reading information. So if we would get to the point where we're talking about assessments and we actually have that as a data point as part of our state assessment process, then we may not need another test. But certainly, the students reading by grade 3, Andrea, is a separate issue. And we need to make sure that we always are having some kind of accountability at grade 3. So it's just a matter of, would we have two tests, that do the kind of the same thing. Yes, Tony?
Yeah, I really like certain aspects of the reading rule, particularly the tracking of the data of the reading in the earlier years, as well as the assessing of the reading. What did it start at kindergarten in the proposed rule? Or?
It's just grade 3.
Oh, I thought it had a component where it
we have
tracked.
not started a process for the reading rule to go forward. You've seen several suggestions if we do want to embark on that now.
Wasn't there wasn't a component that tracked K first and second?
I think it's kind of optional that if schools want to use iRead K and iRead 1 and iRead 2, I think they're developed, but there's no uniform use of those assessments.
But with regard to the rule you proposed, it didn't do anything for K first and second. I thought there was something in
Yes,
there.
it did expand it. But we haven't moved forward in that direction.
No, I understand that.
Correct.
But what
It
I'm
was.
trying to get at is I really like that aspect of the rule you propose, of the collecting the data so school systems know as kids move around, as well as the tracking of K through second. But I don't see where that has to be in replacement of iRead 3. I would like to see them both,
And
the
it-
rule
and-
fashioned in a way where those things coexisted.
And if you recall, the new ADA accountability system actually has an indicator in there for reading. And it's also been recommended that we start that process at grade 1 so that you at least have an indicator of reading for the little ones. So that's why it's in the bigger context, of what we decide here in a little while.
So I guess what I'm asking, is it possible to get the proposed rule revised in a way where it gives us the option to have those good earlier pieces in it and not just displace iRead 3 and keep iRead 3?
without changing the rule? Is that what you're asking?
No, the rule would have to be changed. I'm saying with your proposed change, changing your proposed rule change to incorporate those earlier things, but to keep IRE 3.
Yeah, that would always be the option, I guess, if we wanted to do that as a board. What I was saying to Andrea, though, it might be test information that we already are gathering, and we wouldn't need a separate test.
I'm just saying, as we go forward on consideration of that rule, I would like to see a rule that looked like that as well as an alternative.
Most schools are probably already doing that.
Yeah, yeah, we're all giving our own assessments on reading. I think you're right, Andrea. So the topic itself of reading rule, I guess, is one that we may want to, at the board's pleasure as to whether we're going to proceed with actually making changes to the current rule now, or whether we want to do that a little later when we get into the big topic of assessments as a whole.
Can I?
BJ?
And
Not that we're taking any
correct
vote
me if
today,
I'm
but
wrong here.
we're
No,
just,
absolutely. My only thought here is with all of the changes we have coming up over the next 4 months, but playing devil's advocate, I don't ever want to just sit in our hands and say, we'll wait for, but with standards changes and assessment changes and all that, I don't know if we wait until those things are in place and then bring about reading rule changes. Now, I'm not saying there's not things that would help now, but I hate to invent the wheel and then 12 months from now invent the wheel again.
and
It would
that
be
was
my
kind of,
only-
that was kind of my recommendation
my
back
only
in,
thought.
back in
Again, I hate-
August that we do. Brad?
This is one of the ones that I wrestle with, 'cause I'm trying to, I'm sorry. I don't know if you remember that. This is one of the ones I'm wrestling with because it comes back to what's in the best interest of the student,
That's
teachers and
where I'm
students,
going.
and do we need to move on it now? I get the
Do
waiting.
we take a 1 semester break?
Right,
Or
right.
does it work?
I wouldn't have any objection to us starting to look at the role and keep working forward, but I realize too, we're also talking with the ADAP Accountability Panel, and there could be things coming, but I at the same time too, I feel this, I don't feel it, I hear it. We need to be proactive on this, and I personally think there's nothing wrong with us going ahead and looking at a draft rule, but that's just a thought.
The only concern I have there is when I hear from colleagues, they say, don't give me a moving target, which I think is
Right.
what this may give them. They're like,
Right.
let me know what's expected of me, and I want to get there. And not that we wouldn't have a better target if we did this, but I think if we say, okay, this is what we're going to do 2013-14, and then this is what we're going to do 2014-15, I think that's where the frustration of teachers comes in is you lose some of them because they're like, it's going to be something else next year new, I'll just wait and deal with it then. That's my only fear, and I agree with you 100%. I'm torn because would it be better for 2013, 14, 14, 15? Probably. But big picture, I'm not sure it's the best in the hand. So
Other thoughts? Andrea?
Is there a way, by the way, to study now the link, the possible link between the implementation of the iRead and the increase in the 4th grade NAEP scores? Because I sure wouldn't want to mess up something that's actually working, but we need evidence that it's actually working.
I don't see any way to actually do that because the NAEP is just a very small sample of students in our entire system, whereas the iRead 3 is everybody, all 3rd grade students.
Maybe
In
look at-
fact, yeah, in
okay.
fact, the NAEP, is with 4th grade students.
Right.
And I would like to point out also that, remember, we had a huge, we had several thousand students who were retained in 3rd grade, who are now not in that 4th grade cohort that actually took that NAEP test. So there's some of that comparison to look at too. So I don't know what we can make any direct
But we
correlations.
really need some longitudinal data here, maybe even looking at the